Hello everyone, welcome to Tathastu ICS. My name is Pooja Sharma and we are here again with this new series of Mains Maharat. So today I am going to make you go through the current affairs of June week 2. Okay, so we are going to discuss the important articles which are actually mains oriented article, because this series is actually based on how we are going to identify mains oriented current affairs and how we are going to make notes out of that, what kind of question UPSC can give us. So I have identified few current affairs and let's see what are the important ones, which are the important ones, and we are going to discuss each and every article one by one. So the first article is going to revolve around your Census 2027. Its significance, not only significance is there because it is the most important thing that can be asked in your mains examination, right? So we are going to discuss everything. We are going to discuss the key aspect, the definition of census, and what are the key facts related to that, what are the issues, and what are actually the solutions. And along with that, we are going to practice one's mains oriented question. Our second news is going to revolve around the delimitation. Okay, because actually this news is very much linked to this first one, because the census 2027 is going on the basis of that the new delimitation is going to be happen, and that delimitation is this particular delimitation has so many concerns, especially when concerns related to southern states. So we are going to discuss delimitation in detail, when it was froze, why it was froze, what is the current status, and what are the issues specially related to the southern state, and what are the other issues, and what kind of question UPSC can ask out of this particular news article. Then we are going to discuss this new electric vehicle policy. Actually policy we had last year only. This year the government has come up with the guidelines. So what are those guidelines? Again, because it is very important, what are those guidelines, what are going to be the implications of those guidelines, and what are the issues related to that guidelines, and obviously a way forward, and what kind of question UPSC can ask in mains examination. Then we are going to go through our fourth article, fourth news, which is actually based on Operation Sindoor. Basically not much on Operation Sindoor, more on the subsequent diplomatic outreach after that. We all know that we have sent our diplomats and envoys all over the world so that they can put up the issue of Kashmir from Indian side, and we all know that what has happened at international level, it was not much recognized. So we are going to know about everything, what actually happened, why we sent those diplomats, what is the status of United Nations when it comes to Kashmir issue, and why it is very difficult for India to internationalize this particular issue, though it is very easy for Pakistan to do that. So we are going to understand the whole scenario, and obviously we are going to understand what can be a proper way out of this problem. Okay, again, along with that we are going to do our mains oriented topic. So let's start with our first article or first news on which we are going to revolve our conversation, that is the Census 2027. There were so many articles in your newspaper. So these three articles are particularly from the Hindu newspaper. Obviously there were so many articles in Indian Express and other newspaper also. So this week this was actually one of the very major topic. Along with that, this topic can easily come into your examination, because this is not only important for this week's point of view. Census 2027 is the important topic of a decade. So it is very highly likely that UPSC is going to ask one mains question from this topic, right? And where you can put up, so in GS paper 1 also, it can come under society section, and in GS2 obviously when it comes to the polity and governance, there also you can find this particular topic and the questions surrounding this particular topic. Now, so let's understand what all about it. First of all, let's understand the context. So what is context here? So recently we all know that Home Ministry has announced the next census. Why next census? Because we all know that because of the COVID, 2021 census could not complete it, right? It was actually not even started. Right. Okay, so it is going to be happening in two phases. These are just the fact. Okay, and the reference date is March 1, 2027. Okay, first if you are going to write a mains answer or if you are making mains oriented notes, so how can you make your notes out of some news articles which were scattered throughout your week? So what you are going to do, for example, you are reading your newspaper on daily basis and you can find these articles based on census, after every day, or you can say that there were 3 articles in a particular week. So how can you consolidate everything? First of all, you need to understand what you need for the mains examination. You make your notes that you can utilize those exact notes in your mains answer writing. So first of all, because the census is the topic, so you should know the definition of census. Again, not very complicated and complex definition. The easiest definition which can you keep in your mind, you need to have that kind of definition. For example, I have put up one definition here, that census is the process of collecting, first, second, compiling. Okay, so collection and compiling is not the only basis or not the only outcome of census. Analysis of that census is also the part of our census process, population, sorry. So census is the process of collecting, compiling, analyzing the population of a country, right? So all these 3 keywords, so these are the keywords. You need not to cram each and every word, so you need not to do that. You can just understand, okay, what is census? Census collect data, census is going to compile the data, and obviously census is going to analyze the data. Okay, so the combination of these 3 processes together called as census. Now let's understand the history also. So in your introduction only you can use this history as well, right? So this whole this whole part, this whole page which you can see in front of you, you can utilize in your introduction whenever there is a question based on your census. Okay, so whatever the question is, you can always use the definition of census and the historical perspective of census. So right from Kautilya's Arthashastra to Aine Akbari during the time of Akbar, there have been references to population census, so population census in general, but this is something that is a part in the ancient and medieval India. Now let's come to the modern census. So broadly, what kind of question that census contain? Broadly, the questions are related to age, sex, mother tongue, literacy status, religion, caste, etc. Okay, here the caste is here, but you will say that this is the first time the government is going to ask for the caste. This caste is not the OBC caste, here the caste related to SCs and ST. So since the start of the census after independence, we have been counting the number of SCs and STs in our country, but not OBC. So this time why this time we say that the caste census is going to be there for the first time when we talk about the OBC census, not SC ST census, because this counting we are already doing since independence. This time what is new, we are going to count the other caste also, which are the part of other backward classes, right? Now last census where caste was enumerated, OBC caste I am talking about, for Hindus was in 1931. After that it was not there. Now in 2027 we are going to collect the caste census as well. Now the census had happened from 1881 to 2011 continuously, so there was no break. It always happened after 10 years. So there was no break between 1881 to 2011. But we all know that 2021 census was delayed because of COVID. And after the COVID also, we all knew that 2026 is going to be a benchmark. I will tell you why. So that's why the government was actually staying their stance on census, and now because the new census we have to do, that's why we are not having our census in 2031 now. We are having our census right now in 2027 only, right? Now, what are the key facts related to this present census? First of all, you all know that census is a union list subject. Obviously, by common sense also you can understand that census, because census is something that is a pan-India process. So this is definitely going to be in union list, not in a state list. And the Census Act 1948 is the key legislation related to the census, that how the process of census is going on and everything. This Census Act 1948 only enable the or authorize the central government to undertake census operation, and in this act only it is written that central government is going to appoint a census commissioner to supervise the census process throughout the country. So there is going to be one census commissioner, and it is written in the Census Act 1948. You know, this is very important, okay? You can actually mention these act in your mains answer writing. So the moment you understand everything, the process, where the process is written, the process is not written in constitution, process is written in this particular act, okay? Also, what other roles of census have, center have? Center also appoint the directors. They are going to supervise the census on the state level, okay? So a supervisor at the central level is being appointed by the center, and the supervisors, who are also going to be known as director of the census, they at the state level, they will also be appointed by the center only. What is the role of state here? The state government are going to appoint the census officer, and the staff is going to be provided by the local authority, especially the government school teachers are the basic staff. They actually collect the data. They don't analyze it, they just have this process of collecting the data, that's it, okay? India's first digital census. This census is also known as India's first digital census. How? It doesn't mean that you will have a mobile application, you are going to put your data in application, it will reach there. No, obviously there is going to be a human part. People are going to come to your house, they are going to collect data, but they are going to feed everything on a mobile application. So this is how this is going to be a digital. So house listing is going to be start. It is obviously going to be in two phases. So in March-April 2026, first the house listing will be there, and the later on 21-day exercise will be there in February 2027, and finally the data will be there. You will say that when they will become for house, then they are going to come for house listing. Why don't they collect the data at that point of time only? Because we want the latest data. So there so many babies can be born after 2026, but we want to have a census of 2027. So we don't want any kind of discrepancy here, right? Again, a mobile application will be there to collect the data. Again, this mobile application is not going to be used by the people in general. This application is going to be used by those teachers or the staff who are actually going to collect the data, okay? So analysis part, the statistical part, that can be easily done by this mobile application. Now let's understand what is the significance of this particular census. Obviously, census in general have so much socio-political significance. We are going to talk about that also. Before that, let's understand the specific, significance of this 2027 particular census. Now, this census, this time, why census is so important? Because this time, this census is going to be there, going to be important because of three reasons. The first reason is that the central government has decided to enumerate the caste detail of all Hindus in this census, and this is actually going to be base of the caste census in our country. Why it is like that? Because there were so many political parties and the social groups which were actually putting pressure on the government to count the caste, the OBC caste also. And the government has accepted their demand, and this time the government has announced that the caste census, the OBC caste census, is going to become part of the 2027 census. Why it is important? Secondly, the census is going to be the first after 2026. 2026 census is going to be used for the delimitation exercise of determining the revised number of seats in Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, and this is actually the most important reason why this census is so much controversial and why there are so many things and so many concerns which are revolving around this census. We all know that delimitation is something where we actually going to identify the constituency, okay, which particular state is going to have how many Lok Sabha seats, okay. So the population actually decides if a particular state has more population, it means the state is going to have more Lok Sabha seats. So it is actually directly proportional. But now the twist here is, because during the Indira Gandhi time, she wanted to have population control, she froze it through the 42nd Amendment Act. So the freezing happened, and after that the freezing was actually extended till 2026. Now the 2026 is here, and after 2026 it was decided that first census that is going to happen after 2026 is going to be the basis of the number of seats in Lok Sabha from each state. We can see that from last 3 to 4 decades the number of seats in Lok Sabha from each state is frozen. Okay, so but any change is that can actually change the political influence of each and every state in Lok Sabha. So that's why everyone is fearful that how this particular census is going to be turned out, and what about the population of each and every state, and the certain states are concerned that they might lose some of the seats. So that's why this is the second reason why this census is important. The third reason why it is important, because this census is also going to form the basis for the reservation of the 1/3 seats of women in Lok Sabha and the state assemblies. This is also the one of the reason why this particular 2027 census is important. Now let's understand the general importance of census. UPSC can actually ask you the specific importance also. What is the significance of the census of 2027? Okay, what if the question comes, just tell us the general importance or general significance of census in general, because census is in news. First of all, we all know that census captures existing reality. Okay, we all agree on that, but it also influences these particular existing reality. How it do that? Is there any political implication? Yes. If a government has a data on birth, death, migration, language and the work, it have direct political consequences. For example, if some people of a particular state has migrated to some other state, then obviously these people are not going to be present there, they are present in some other state. So political demography has changed, right? Documenting these patterns shape political debates and the decisions also. Demography is a subject which has been in debate for such a long time. For example, number of people, number of what is the sex ratio. If the sex ratio is very less, for example, in states such as Haryana, the sex ratio has become very low. This became a part of the political scenario in Haryana only. Even the Haryana was recognized for this fact that the sex ratio is very skewed in that particular state. So how the politician behaved at that point of time? They actually started campaigning for Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao. Even the national level campaign, that is Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, that was started from Haryana only. So this is how the demographic data actually influence the politics also, right? So this is actually the importance of census. So census is not something which is purely related to statistics, that we are going to have some information. It is about the analysis of that information also, and how that analysis is going to impact something in a big way, especially when it comes to politics. Now, what are the apprehensions of certain state now? So we are going to understand that also. So here in this article we are going to understand, it is in a very, in a not a very comprehensive way, but in the next article we are going to discuss in detail, because the next article is about delimitation only. So what are the apprehensions of southern state? If the population alone is going to be used as the basis of the seats for the redistribution, obviously they fear using Lok Sabha seat to higher population states in the north. For example, states such as Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, and the southern states such as Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, they are fearful they might lose seats if the number of seats are going to be same. Okay, this is one apprehension. The second apprehension is from the smaller state of North India as well as in the northeastern state. Because why? Because if the state is very small, it means the population is also very small. So they fear that what if they lose their minimum representation also. Okay, so smaller states such as Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand and northeastern state worry that population based delimitation may lead to merging or losing their constituencies. So these are actually the apprehension related to this present census. So if UPSC is going to ask you question, what are the apprehensions associated with the census 2027? So you can mention these 2 points. Actually, you can make these 2 points into the 3 points. And if UPSC is going to ask you about the significance specifically for 2027, you are going to mention those 3 points. And in general, if there is a question on the basic or general significance of the whereas census, then you can mention the political, socio-political implications of census, right? Now let's come to the solution part. Solution part, basically sometimes UPSC can actually ask you about the solution, or you can use the solution as your way forward also. So what can be a solution here? So the many of these states have demanded a freeze on Lok Sabha seats at the existing level. So there has been a widespread consensus, why don't we freeze it till 2056, right? Second, we can increase the Lok Sabha seat to 800, okay, or around 850 by keeping the small states safe. If the number of seats are going to be increased, so apprehensions that are with uh, smaller state of the north India, northeastern India, so this problem at least we can eliminate. Other than that, we can allocate the constituency not only on the basis of population, we can allocate the constituency on the basis of electors also, okay? So why don't we use that? So these are the few innovative solutions we can that you can use in your way forward. Now what is the actual way forward? So in the same series only, again the census data must be collected in a proper and accurate way. Why? Because this time it is going to become the basis, okay, how many seats a particular state is going to have. Second, and there are other reasons also why this census is very important. That's why the accuracy, okay, of this particular census is very important. So there we cannot even afford a single manipulation of any data. Now, because it is going to have a direct socio-economic and direct political consequences, and the consequences related to the representation of states in parliament. At the same time, the concerns of southern state as well as the smaller states of North India and Northeastern India, we need to take those issues and those concerns very seriously. Okay, if we are going to have a proper communication with them, if the government or the center is going to have a proper communication, only then such issues, such apprehension and the concerns are going to be addressed. Now, so let's understand what kind of question UPSC can ask. Obviously, there can be many questions out of this particular topic, but I have taken one and I will tell you how you can deal with this particular question. So the question is, the census is not merely a statistical exercise. Okay, it is not merely a statistical exercise, but a political and development tool. So here the focus is, obviously we can give the definition of census first in our introduction. What is census in general and what is the primary aim of census, right? But the main part should contain the political and development implications of census. Okay, so you are going to divide your main part in many headings, like what is the political significance. So when it comes to political significance, you need to mention Article 81. 81 is an article which actually tells us that how population is going to be the basis of the number of seats in Lok Sabha. Okay, Lok Sabha. So obviously there is political implication of census. Development importance, do we have any development importance? Actually, you can write that if we have a proper data, that data is going to be used for the different welfare schemes which is being started by the government. For example, if we talk about MG Narega, how the government is going to implement MG Narega in a particular state. If we know that how many people are actually living in that state, what is the proper demography, how many men, how many women, okay, we need to know all that data. Only then it is very important for us to have this developmental implication based on the data that we have, right? Other than that, census, it is not that census only going to do the head count. Census actually going to document what is, do you have a house or not, do you have a car or not, do you have a fridge or not. So on the basis of that, the government can actually identify that what is the economic status of the people of a particular state and what kind of necessary push or necessary developmental activities they need. So on the basis of that, only the policymakers can make policies. Now, is there a role in the governance also? Yes, if we are going to talk about the caste census, obviously caste census, it can have direct implication on governance also. In conclusion, we can actually justify whatever we are going to write in our main part of your answer. Okay, So I hope you can do this answer. Please do start, abhi start mat karna, but you can write answer of this question. Now let's come to our second news. Second news is, what are the apprehensions, what are the concerns of the southern state, and what is the meaning of this delimitation in general, right? So here this particular topic you can use in your GS paper 2 polity and governance part. Again, in these headings you can use this particular topic. Now let's start the topic. First we need to understand what actually the delimitation is and how it is actually being carried out. So you need to know the background and the proper understanding of delimitation if you want to write a proper answer of delimitation. First of all, delimitation mandated by the constitution. It is actually mandated in constitution. It is not something that is only defined in acts. It should be carried out after every census. So what did the constitution say? Constitution said that it should be carried out after every census, or we can say that it should be carried out after every 10 years when the census is complete, right? To determine the number of seats and redraw the boundaries of the Lok Sabha and the state assembly constituencies, right? It also identified seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribe communities. Along with that, the first delimitation commission was established in 1952 because the census was already there. 1951 census we had, and just after that we had our first delimitation commission, and the seats were allocated to each state on the basis of the first delimitation commission, and there were total 494 seats at that point of time. Then with time, obviously there were other delimitation commissions after every census, and finally we can say that in 1973, from after that the delimitation, the population criteria was actually freeze. So at that point of time it was decided that in Lok Sabha there will be 543 seats, and which state is going to get how many number of states, that was also decided. Okay, that was also decided. Now what happened after that? So why there was a freeze on the delimitation exercise and why it was enforced? So what happened during the emergency? The Indira Gandhi government actually amended the constitution, and we had this famous 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. This act actually frees the delimitation of Lok Sabha and Assembly until 2001. Actually at that point of time it was in 1970, at that point of time it was freeze till 2001 only. Right now we are in 2026. So there is another part of story also, but this is the first part of story. So what actually happened when the Indira Gandhi amended the constitution under 42nd Constitution Amendment Act? Achha, why did she do that? Because it was a part of the effort to encourage the population control measures, because the number of seats, the more population it is, more number of seats in Lok Sabha. So the government did not want to encourage the states to have more population so that they can politically have more representation in Lok Sabha. That why the number of seats of each state was froze at that point of time. So as a result, the delimitation commissions were not constituted following the 1981 and 1991 census, because for we can say that for 2 to 2.5 decades it was froze. Now what happened after that? So obviously when the year 2001 arrived, at that point of time the southern states were not very happy, and they were again fearful of the fact that now the delimitation is going to happen again. The same fear which they have right now, the same kind of fear they had, the same kinds of debate were there at political level at that point of time also, in 2001 also. So apprehending a big loss in political representation, the southern state opposed the constitution of a delimitation commission after 2001 census. Basically it was there that after 2001 new delimitation commission is going to be there, and the number of seats from each state are going to be changed. But at that point of time southern state opposed, and in response our Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee extended the freeze until 2026. So again there was an extension in the number of seats in Lok Sabha, freeze of the number of seats in Lok Sabha. Now the freeze on the number of state-wise distribution of the seats ends in 2026. So same 2001 kind of condition is again there in 2026. So we can see that it is a really important issue, important topic for mains. Now, what are the demands of the southern state? A delimitation exercise based solely on population. If the population is the only criteria right now, yes, population is the only criteria, then southern state will reduce their political representation in parliament. This is very much true, right? They question why they should be penalized for successfully implementing the population control program. Why they are being penalized, while the states that have not made the similar efforts, they are going to be rewarded. The states which did not pay any attention to population control, obviously their population is more, and if the population is more, it means more Lok Sabha seats. If the number of seats remain fixed at 543 and the delimitation is based on the post 2026 population figures, the southern India could lose 20 seats. So these are the actual figure. Again, these figures are just for understanding. You need not to write these figure in examination, okay, because your answer is going to be very lengthy. No need to write all those things, just understand these things. If the number of seats are fixed at 543, let's say that, and we are going to have a delimitation after 2026 census, then it is highly likely that the southern state will lose 20 seats, which may be redistributed to the northern seats. It means the loss of 20 seats for southern state and the gain of 20 seats for northern states. So obviously southern India state are not going to be happy about it. And on the other hand, if we are going to increase the number of seats to 848, so there is a possibility the government is going to increase the seats, which is highly likely also. If the seats are increased, then what is going to happen? Then the Uttar Pradesh could gain over 60 more seats because the population of UP is very large, while the entire South India is going to receive fewer than the 40 additional seats. It means again the representation, there is going to be a up and down in the representation. Again, the representation is not going to be considered as a fairer representation. If the seats are going to be fixed at that in that condition also, and if the seats are going to be increased to 848 at that point of time also, the southern state will gain some seats, but not as much as the northern state, or we can say that a single state of North India is going to gain 60 more seats if the seats are increased, though the whole of the South India is going to gain less than 40 seats. So again, there is such a huge difference. Now, from mains point of view, what you need to do? Okay, so this whatever I have told you right now, it was a theory. So it was something on which you can make your understanding of delimitations and issue associated with that. Now you have understood there is a issues, you know what is delimitation, the key facts related to delimitation, 42nd Amendment Act, 84th Amendment Act. Then you also know what are the concerns related to the southern state. You also know that the concerns related to the other smaller state of North India and Northeastern India. So you have all this folder. Now on which line UPSC can ask you question? UPSC, whatever UPSC is going to ask, you need to know these three parts. First, you need to know what is limitation, then what are the associated issues related to delimitation, and what are the solution related to delimitations. So let's understand the associated issue. You know the issues related to southern state, and what is the art of note making contains how can you use one particular point in many ways. So let's understand here. For example, we can say that the issue, when issue related to southern state, we can have a better heading, that is the regional imbalance in representation. We are not going to write a heading which say the southern state fear losing their seats. We will say regional imbalance in representation. Under this, we can mention the southern state fear losing parliamentary seats. It can discourage the effort of population control. Then we can say that there can be some federal tension also, because when the southern state are going to demand for the freeze of the number of seats again, if the center is not going to comply with their demand, then there is going to be a contention between these two. So it may shift the political power disproportionately towards northern state, creating friction in the center state relation. Other than that, we can mention the apprehensions of smaller state in North India and northeastern states. So we had only 1 point, and we actually made 3 points out of that particular 1 point. Now what is the solution related? So what solution you can provide? First of all, we can say that why don't we have balanced criteria of representation? It means why we need to make representation only on the basis of population. Why don't we use another indicator such as these development indicators such as the governance quality and the migration data, etc., so that the process can look more fairer. Other than the statutory protection for certain states, if it is like that, if the southern states are going to fear again and again that we are actually doing good when it comes to population control, but this might act in our disadvantage, then to make them, to pacify them, we can actually give them statutory protection. Other than that, the independent delimitation commission we can have, so that the process of delimitation is very, very fair. Other than that, we can actually rely on dialogue and consensus building between the center and the southern state or the smaller state in general. Said we are going to listen to them, and the center is going to put their point also, and there should be a consensus on the basis of that. So this is actually the proper solution. Along with that, you can mention the increase in the number of states, but it also has some kind of drawbacks, right? So let's look at one question which is related to this particular topic. The upcoming delimitation exercise post census 2027 may alter India's federal power dynamics. Critically examine. Okay, I am not giving you the pointers of this particular question, because whatever I have taught you, you are going to write an answer based on those notes, and you are going to put your own efforts, your own mind, and you need to have a proper structure of this particular question, right? Now let's come to our next news, which is the electric vehicle policy of India. Again, why it is a news? Why electric vehicle? Because electric vehicle in general are very, very important, right? So let's understand what is the context here. So recently Ministry of Heavy Industry notified the guidelines. Okay, now we only have the guidelines. The scheme was already there. For the scheme to promote manufacturing of electric passenger cars in India. Electric passenger car means electric vehicles only. So it is the other way of writing, EVs only. EVs and the promote the manufacturing in India. So here we are talking about the Indianization of EVs, okay, but the name of the scheme is scheme to promote. So how we are going to promote it? Obviously there has to be some guidelines, there has to be some pointers. On the basis of that, we can promote the manufacturing of electric passenger car in India. So it is, we need investment for that. How can we do that? How can we have electric vehicles made in our country only, okay, made in India, let's say? How can we do that? What we need actually for that? What we actually need? So the core here is, we need 2-3 things. First of all, we need investment. We need investment. We need both kind of investment. We can need Indian, or you can say the local investment also. Investment can come from foreign country also. So we can have both local investment also and foreign investment also. Other than that, to have a made in India electric vehicle, we need proper research and development. We need practical aspect of it. Okay, practical aspect. Ki how can we have? What we need? We need technology. With technology, so that we can have cheaper electric vehicles in our country. Okay, so we should know all these things, right? Right? No, the main idea is to allow global electric vehicle manufacturer to enter the Indian market by offering lower import duties only if they also invest in local manufacturing. So let me make you understand this idea also. So what is this? Again, now what are all written in these guidelines, and what is the main idea that is behind these guidelines? So these guidelines are saying that we can allow the global EV manufacturers such as Tesla, okay, now they can enter India's market. What is the meaning of entering India's market? It means they can actually import their EVs, their already manufactured EV, totally manufactured EV, right, in our country with Lower import duties. It means when these vehicles are going to end, for example, this is a Tesla EV and this EV is going to be imported in our country, in India. Okay. Obviously, in generally we have higher import duty, but these guidelines saying that let's lower the import duty. Okay. Let's lower the import duty. If we are going to lower the import duty, it means more and more such vehicles are going to enter India, right? The first aspect of these guidelines are this, but this is not the only aspect. There is one addition to it. Only if there is a condition. So these foreign electric vehicles, they can enter our country, but there is a condition. So what is that condition? That they also invest in local manufacturing. So if Tesla is going to enter India with their manufactured EVs, they have to invest in India. In India, or invest in which sector? Invest in the local manufacturing of EVs. But if you look at this particular process, you will see that here the government is focusing on foreign investment when it comes to electric vehicle, right? So here the whole story is about foreign investment, how we can have the foreign investment for that. So this is the investment. Invest in India. Here we can get the investment, but along with that we are giving them lower import duty so that they can import their electric vehicle in our country, right? So this is the basis of these guidelines. This particular news you can use in your GS paper 3 infrastructure, economic development, industrial policy part specifically. Okay. So this is going to be part of your main syllabus of industrial policy. So what are the key provisions of these scheme? First of all, I have already told you, let me give you some data also. Again, you need not to remember the whole data. You can remember the few important ones. I will tick which one is important. First of all, the import duty is cut. So I have already told you, when the Tesla, not only Tesla is just an example. When a foreign electric vehicle is going to enter into our country, the import duty is going to get reduced. So right now the import duties are from 70 to 100%. But we are going to reduce this import duty to 15% only. It is also very important data, you can use it. Second, the price condition. It is applicable to vehicles priced $35,000 and above. Again, this data you need not to remember, but you just need to have that there is some price condition. So there are so many conditions. The one another condition is the price condition. Now, time frame. It is valid only for 5 years. This is something that is important. That it is not that Tesla is going to have that forever policy, they can import their electric vehicle in our country. No, it is just for 5 years. Now, there is investment clause also. So they can, the foreign electric vehicle, they can enter India in such a small import duty, but they need to have investment of 4,150 crore rupees within 3 years. Okay, so within 3 years they need to invest this money. Obviously, there is a localization requirement also. The moment they are going to be here, they need to have the 25% localization within 3 years and 50% localization within 5 years, and 5 years is the time frame to which they can import their vehicles. Is there any import cap? Yes, maximum of 8,000 vehicles per year can enter our country. Duty foregone limit is also there. It is capped at 6,484 crore rupees. What is the meaning of duty foregone limit? It means that if we are talking about 15%, if we are going to reduce this duty, let's say from 100% to 15%, obviously we are going to lose something. There is a loss in monetary term. So this is the only loss we can, are going to allow. After that, we are not going to allow at import of these electric vehicle at such a low rate, right? So this is the capping. Again, this figure you need not to remember. This 8,000 vehicle, this part you can remember. You can remember this part because this is actually has direct implication in the localization. You can remember this part also, and you can remember the how we are going to reduce the duty from 70 to 100% to 15% only. Again, now, what are the expected benefit here? First of all, the potential entry of global EVs giant like Tesla, they can come to our country. They could accelerate India's EV adoption also, which is very important for us. if we look at our NDCs, we want India to make, carbon neutral, carbon zero by 2070. How can we achieve it if we are going to run our cars on petrol and diesels? We need to have electric vehicles. So it is going to accelerate the India's EV adoption, which is very important for us. Again, it may generate employment and build supporting EV infrastructure. Obviously, if the new industry, new electric vehicle industry is going, if it is going to boom, let's say in our country, obviously it is going to provide employment to Indian people as well, because it is basically the part of localization. But there are so many concern and criticism when it comes to this particular policy. First of all, the analysts are actually warning that foreign firms are unlikely to share core technology. Yes, Tesla is actually going to import its already built vehicle, but and they can have the local element localization of manufacturing as well. But are they going to provide us that technology as well? So technology is something. So I have already told you in last slide that this particular, the whole guideline policy is basically focused on foreign investment. It focuses on the money which can be invested in the new localized in a EV industry that can be India based. It is not focused on research and development. It is not focused on the technology transfer. Now these firms who are coming to India, they are unlikely to share technology with us. India may become just an assembly hub for their manufacturing part. Now, domestic players such as Tata Motors, they oppose this policy. Why? Because they see that we obviously right now there are higher duties. They protected the electric vehicle startup, but now this particular guideline can discourage it. Other than that, current policy favor expensive four-wheelers. Okay, because Tesla is not going to, introduce in India three-wheelers or two-wheelers. They are going to import four-wheelers. So this whole policy is actually promoting the four-wheeler EV vehicles. But India's EV industries right now is based on three-wheelers and two-wheelers. Okay, so we are already have a good base when it comes to three-wheeler and two-wheeler electric vehicles. But now this policy is not focusing on two-wheeler and three-wheeler, which already have some base. It is focusing on four-wheelers. Also, the present policy is not focusing on public transport. They are focusing on private transportation, that is four-wheeler. India is the largest market for EV three-wheel market. So this is actually an associated fact. Again, the policy neglect affordable and mass mobility options. Other than that, ecosystem weakness. Unlike China and South Korea, India lacks focus on research and development, skill development and innovation, which is actually very necessary. So what we actually required? Obviously, we required investment, local as well as foreign as well as. Along with that, we required research and development, we required technology transfer. So what we are gaining from these guidelines? We are only gaining foreign investment from these guidelines. We are not boosting the local manufacturing or local investment. Why? Because if we are going to reduce the duty, it is going to discourage the local investors to invest in this area first. We are not focusing on the technology transfer, and we are not focusing on the research and development or innovation part at India level. So this is also very important. So this is actually the analysis of these guidelines. These guidelines again very important. So what can be a way forward here? First of all, we need to prioritize technology sharing agreement. Then we need to promote Make in India by enhancing research and development, skill development and supply chain. Then we need to ensure balanced EV policy. This policy is actually not balanced. It is actually tilted on the one side, that is the foreign investment, that's it. We need to have something that is balanced. Okay. Other than that, we need to design fiscal support also. Fiscal support means support from the government to protect and promote domestic EV industry. So we can write these pointers as a way forward or in your conclusion part. Okay. Now this is the question which I have framed for you. Discuss the challenges and the opportunities associated with reducing import duties on electric vehicle in context of India's broader goals of Atmanirbhar Bharat and sustainable mobility. So Atmanirbhar Bharat means we can say that localization is the same thing, localization in general. So you can actually write this answer on the basis of the fodder which I have already provided you. Now let's come to our next article. So next article is about the Operation Sindoor and the subsequent diplomatic outreach. Again, we are not going to discuss much on Operation Sindoor. We are going to focus much on this part. Okay. So what are the key issues related to that? We all know that recently our government has sent some envoys and diplomats to all over the world. Okay, they actually carried one message with them that India is actually the victim of the terrorism. Along with that, they wanted to have the awareness at the world level when it comes to Kashmir issue. We as Indian, we don't know that we all know very much about the Kashmir issue and what is happening. Are we victim or the Pakistan is imposing on us? So we know the reality, but this reality, this ground reality is not very popular at international level. So this was actually the purpose, one of the purpose of this diplomatic, convey which was sent by our present government. But when these diplomats they came back and we came to know about the issues which lies at the international level. So this whole, what are the subsequent diplomatic outreach? Okay, this whole part is based on this idea. So what are the key issues we are going to discuss today? First, we are going to discuss the limitation in international and bilateral mechanisms in resolving India-Pakistan issue. Their India-Pakistan issue can be resolved on two lines. First, there can be bilateral mechanism, that is between India and Pakistan only. We are lacking on it. Why? Shimla agreement is there obviously, but Shimla agreement we can say that it doesn't have any much value, because after that so many conflict between India and Pakistan has happened. Again, from by bilateral means it is not very feasible for us to resolve this issue. Another is the international mechanism. International mechanism means we can use the international pressure on Pakistan, okay, pressure on Pakistan. But this is being problematic for us. This is also problematic for us. Why this is problematic? Because at international level, even the countries are not aware that really the Pakistan occupied Kashmir belongs to India. They don't even know that. They have this false map of India, and on the basis of that they identify that this part belongs to Pakistan or part belongs to India. Second, we are going to understand the outdated ideas at international level, the Cold War era narratives and the geopolitical stagnation around the Kashmir issue. So we are going to understand what is the problem that we are facing in internationalizing the Kashmir issue, right? Now, here in GS paper 2 you can utilize this particular section or this particular topic. Now, first of all, let's understand what is the role of United Nations and its limitation on the Kashmir issue. We all know that in 1948 when India actually took this in the issue of the Kashmir to United Nations also. So this was the start of everything. You know that India and Pakistan, bifurcated in 1947. After that, the Kashmir was a big issue, right? And the Pakistan actually attacked Kashmir at that point of time. Then India came to rescue. After that, the instrument of accession was signed by the Raja of Kashmir, and after that, legally or politically, it was considered that Kashmir is a very much part of India. Okay, so this was the story behind that. But after that, Pakistan actually put pressure on India. That's why India took this particular issue in United Nations at that point of time. But at that point of time, when we took this issue to the United Nations, one mistake has happened. It was not a mistake from their part, but there was something which we could actually pressurize on more. So the United Nations historical position on Kashmir is written under article, or it was being, it was put under article 6 and not under article 7. What is the difference between article 6 and 7? If there is any issue which is there in article 7, then what happened? If article 7 of the UN Charter, which deals with the aggression and allows the enforcement action, if that point of time United Nations could put the Kashmir issue in article 7, then it was going to be very beneficial for us, because there we could use aggression and we could allow the enforcement action and we could take back our Pakistan occupied Kashmir at that point of time only. But instead of that, when the India took this particular issue in United Nations, they put this Kashmir issue in Article 6. Okay, and Article 6 is not a powerful article. According to Article 6 is about the peaceful negotiation, that if two countries they have some dispute, why don't they sit together and they have peaceful negotiation, mediation and arbitration, but not enforcement. Though the Pakistan occupied Kashmir is very much part of India, but in United Nations, the historical position of United Nations here is that this whole issue is not under Article 7, it is under Article 6. We are talking about the United Nations. These articles are not from our constitution. UN Charter. So, articles from United Nations Charter. So, right now, what is the stance? What is the stand of United Nations when it comes to Kashmir issue? So, the Kashmir issue has been put under Article 6, not in 7. So, it means no one can do anything. These two countries need to sit peacefully. They cannot even have any enforcements. Okay, so Operation Sindoor in general is not being justified under Article 6. Okay, according to that, India was not supposed to enforce, okay, or use the force so that they can resolve the Kashmir issue. So this is the one part. And you can see that you have seen these maps. These so many times we come across, whenever we search the map of India. So we have seen this is the map of India which has been shown at any site which is not an Indian site. So why is that? And on the basis of this is a map of United Nations. It is a map of United Nations because they just made this map, okay. But many countries which don't follow South Asia closely. For example, there is a country in South America. They don't follow the politics of South Asia very closely. So whenever they look for the maps, they look for the United Nations map. So when you look at the map, in this map you can see that clearly Pakistan occupied Kashmir is not part of India. So there are fundamental issues why it is very difficult for us to internationalize India-Pakistan problem. Now, what is India's position on terrorism right now? So this is not the first time India is fighting or India is raising its voice for this terrorism. India actually tried early 30 years ago to push for a global definition of terrorism at the United Nations. Why don't we have a proper definition of terrorism? But right now we don't even have any definition of terrorism, but it was dismissed because the countries argued that, we all know that one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. This is very basic line, and on the basis of that we cannot identify, we cannot have a proper definition of a terrorist. They pointed out India's past support to the freedom fighters in Africa and Sri Lanka, and they will say that now it is a contradiction. If you say that a freedom fighter in Sri Lanka is freedom fighter for you, but terrorist for some other people, okay. So at that point of time you favored freedom fighters who were considered terrorist for some other group of people. Then how can you say that the whatever the issue which is going in the Kashmir, it is about terrorist or freedom fighting? So there is so many vagueness when it comes to the definition of terrorism. So that's why even United Nations doesn't have any definition. India pushed for it, but obviously it was not listened, it was dismissed. Now, what is India's strategic restraint? Recently, obviously, we know that India used surgical strikes, LOC ceasefire and diplomatic engagement, okay. But its legal justification under Article 51, that is self-defense, is debated under international law. So, what is this Article 51? Obviously, this article is also United Nations article. So, what is written in this 51? It is actually based on self-defense. So, India actually legally justifies its surgical strikes. Let's say the recent one, the Operation Sindoor. So, India justified that this strike is actually very much justified under Article 51 because we have done this self-defense. But the international community is not accepting this, okay. Other than that, United Nations Counter-Terrorist Committee, there is a Counter-Terrorism Committee in United Nations. It actually remains non-committal on the states treating terrorism as an act of war. They don't see the terrorism and war on a one page. They look at these two things separately, right? So they are actually not in favor if you are facing terrorism, let's say it is being even if it is being sponsored by Pakistan, you don't have any right to attack or start a war. So this is what the United Nations think. So I hope you understood what is the issue here. Now there are another issue, that is the hyphenation issue. So let's understand this issue. So when India took the Kashmir invasion to the United Nations in 1948, it should have been called aggression by the Pakistan, but it was not so. It was discussed under peaceful dispute settlement under Article 6. This led to the confusion that India and Pakistan got clubbed together on each and every issue. Now whenever there is India, the Pakistan was there. Whenever there was Pakistan, the India was there. So there was this problem of hyphenation. So for example, USA, whenever USA was dealing with India, USA always had Pakistan in mind. When they were dealing with Pakistan, they always had India in mind. So we needed to do the de-hyphenation. But right now this hyphenation, India and Pakistan, so they were actually clubbed together. So whenever they looked at India, they looked at the Pakistan also. When both countries got nuclear weapons, then this Kashmir issue was become a nuclear flashpoint also. So right now no one is focusing on how to solve the Kashmir issue. Everyone, whenever there is any conflict related to Kashmir, they see that it is a nuclear flashpoint, because the both countries are nuclear power countries. If there is any dispute, it can lead to a nuclear war, and everyone focus on that nuclear part only. They don't focus on the solution. Pakistan urges global platform to internationalize the issue, whereas India always stressed on the bilateral solution, but again that was also a failure. Now, what is India's dilemma in internationalizing issue? Obviously, we have understood the part. Now we know that the multilateral effort sending special envoys had limited impact due to so many biases which are already there at the international community level. So what is the solution? So now, instead of sending these diplomats outside, or you seeking the support from the international community, we as Indians, we need to have our own security centric strategy. So our strategy, obviously we want to have talks, we want to have negotiation. This is also best possible way to resolve any issue, but right now we can see that there are so many biases at the international level. They don't actually have any right information about what actually the issue is. So right now we need to focus on a strategy which is security centric. So we need to have our own national security points. Other than that, we need to have narrative clarity. India must consistently clarify its stance on Jammu and Kashmir and terrorism using modern strategic language at international level. We need to repeat it again and again so that it can become internationalized, it can become popular, the people can actually listen to our voice. Other than that, we need reforms in United Nations. We need to push on the definition of the terrorism in general, because terrorism is not only a problem of India, terrorism is a problem that is the pan world. So it is being, the whole world is being affected by it. So we need to have a definition of terrorism, right? Now, I hope you understood the article. Now there is a question which I have designed for you. First, let's look at the question. Why has diplomacy failed? We can see that obviously recently diplomacy has failed. This is a very probable question in your mains examination. To resolve the Indian-Pakistan conflict, right? And how? First is why diplomacy has failed. So we are going to mention the biasness that is at international level, and how India adjusted its counter-terrorism strategy within the framework of international law. It means by remaining under the framework of international law that we are going to negotiate everything peacefully, how can we have our counter-terrorism strategy? Surgical strike is something which is not being justified at international level. So we need to have some other counter terrorism strategy which is under the international law. Why? Because the diplomacy has failed to solve this India-Pakistan problem. Okay. So I hope you understood this article also. You can actually write the answer. Okay, and you can actually write the pointers also of these 4 questions which I have given you. And why don't you put it in your comment section? I want to see, okay, but you have gained from this particular session. Okay, so we are going to end this session. So thank you so much. Have a very nice day. Obviously, we are going to be back again with another such informative sessions. and we are going to discuss current affair for June week 3 as well. So till then, thank you so much and have a very, very nice day.